It's time for one of my iconic Halloween specials. I know a lot of you are already looking forward to the next one, but don't worry, you can expect the next Halloween special to release sometime within the next year, possibly sometime in March. But for this special, I'm going to be talking a lot about one of my favorite games, that being Luigi's Mansion. If I made a list of my top 100 favorite games, Luigi's Mansion would easily be in the top 19, probably around second place. That's how much I love this game. I first got to Luigi's Mansion when I was about 7 or 8. I was in the GameStop inside the mall, and that was where I first heard about it. I believe it was a used copy that either me or my dad noticed. Before this, I knew absolutely nothing about this game, but I guess the box art name was enough to get me wanting to play it. I remember I really wanted to play it right then, but my dad got a bit mad at me since he could have gotten it cheaper on eBay. But hey, I persuaded him, I guess, and we ended up bringing it home that day. On the car ride home, you better believe I was checking out that box art. And while I was playing it, I was still looking at that box art. It's just very visually appealing, and that back really intrigued me too. Like, who's Bogmire? I was very slow at playing the game, so I didn't know who Bogmire was for quite a while. I still sorta don't know what their deal is. Honestly, I had to look it up because I forgot what their boss fight was like. But yeah, Luigi's Mansion quickly became one of my favorite games. I loved it. But I always had to have one of my parents in the same room with me whenever I played it, since I was too scared to play it by myself. Realistically, it wasn't that bad, since generally the ghosts were trying to scare Luigi and not you. But as a kid, it was still very scary. But low-key, I'd probably be a little scared if I played it today too. As a kid, Luigi's Mansion was the only horror game I ever played, and as an adult, the statement is still true. I'm not a horror game guy, or even a mildly scary game guy. I do not play them, and like Luigi's Mansion is the only horror game I've ever played. I don't even know if that counts. I've played games that have scary sections in them, but for pure horror, I think Luigi's Mansion is my limit. But I'm fine with that. I love the vibes that Luigi's Mansion gives off. For me, it's the perfect amount of scary. I can be slightly startled without it being so intense that the moisture content of my pants suddenly increases. I'm referring to peeing myself if you couldn't tell. I also love the gameplay, but it took a little for me to get the hang of it. Like, I remember I knew they could aim upward with the poltergust, but for whatever reason, I couldn't figure out they were supposed to do that to hit the baby ghost with the ball. Like, that fight stumped me for a little bit. But I remember this. I was in like a store with my family, and I suddenly had the realization, like, oh, you have to aim upwards. I don't know, that wasn't supposed to be tricky, but it took a bit for me to figure it out. But eventually I got through it and I slowly made my way through the game. I'll just mention a few standout things I remember. So later in the game, after I beat the granny ghost, I must have like left the room immediately, or like, I don't know, maybe I like went to save and I was somewhere else. I don't know. But for whatever reason, right after I beat the granny ghost, I did not pick up the key. So I was like stumped for a little bit, and I remember I gave my sister the controller because she wanted to like mess with it, I guess, you know, play around. And she ended up entering that room with the chest, and she found the key, and I remember at the time that like frustrated me because I was like, oh no, I wanted to 100% this game by myself, but now my sister did it, you know? There's not really anything crazy with that story, it's just like a memory I have of like, oh, this annoyed me. In retrospect, it doesn't matter, but yeah, that's a thing that happened. Like, her helping me at the game annoyed me enough where I remember today, so, yeah. I don't have many crazy memories about playing it outside of just, you know, enjoying the experience. Like, I remember the blackout scared me, searching for the mirror ghost was intense, but really fun. The game definitely had me on edge, but I wasn't screaming when I played or anything. It was a fun amount of intensity, you know? But eventually I beat the game and I loved it throughout. Maybe my opinion would change if I played it today, but currently, I still consider Luigi's Mansion to be one of my favorite things. I remember after I beat the game, I kept asking my parents to search online to see if Luigi's Mansion 2 was announced, and I was very happy when it was actually announced. I think I was a little disappointed that it was on 3DS, but I was still excited for it. When it finally released, I ended up playing it and I thought it was, you know, kinda mediocre actually. I kinda had the same complaints as everyone else. I missed the portrait ghosts, and the mission style of 2 also wasn't great. Overall, I didn't hate it, but I quit like halfway through and didn't continue until a while later. Like, I don't remember who it was. It was either Chugga Conroy or Zach Scott. Maybe I watched both of them? But I don't know. Some YouTuber played Luigi's Mansion 2, and I ended up getting inspired to, you know, continue playing. But I don't know, it doesn't really matter. But after I finished Luigi's Mansion 2, I just thought it was okay. My opinion didn't change. I still wasn't a big fan. Dark Moon isn't bad, but it's not peak like the original is. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of Luigi's Mansion 2, I was still pretty excited at the possibility of a third game. Since we're now in the modern era, I actually have some screenshots to show you. Here's me 2 days before the announcement. Here's me on the day of the announcement. Yeah, as you can see, I was very happy. When Luigi's Mansion 3 was released and I had the chance to play it, I had a lot of fun. However, Luigi's Mansion 3 is basically a sequel to Luigi's Mansion 2. They took a lot of elements from 2, but they improved them enough to the point where I actually like them. I collected all the collectibles, I had fun with it, it was a solid game all around. If future Luigi's Mansion games are like this, I can't really complain. But I will complain slightly. I definitely had some complaints when I first played it, but I haven't played the game in 4 years, so it's a little hard to recall. I guess I didn't like how most of the floors just involved finding a boss and fighting them. The floors were different from each other, but sometimes almost felt too expected, I guess. Like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I guess it felt less free than the original Luigi's Mansion. I guess it felt more disconnected than the first game, since, like, you do backtrack in 3, but I guess less, and since the floors have unique themes, it feels more disconnected from each other, and more like a level, almost. Although I do appreciate the different environments since it spices up gameplay, so I don't know. But really, this is a great game. It introduces new mechanics, it has interesting environments, and that's the only Luigi's Mansion game with Morty in it, so instantly extra points for that. And I gotta say, this game is visually beautiful, and the cutscenes are so charming. I'd still say that the original Luigi's Mansion is my favorite, but if Luigi's Mansion 3 is your favorite, I completely understand. It's very charming. Well, that's more or less what I wanted to say. I'm sure that tomorrow I'll think of a bunch of other stuff that I wish I mentioned. And I'm sure if I actually replay one of the games, there'd be a million more things I also wish I mentioned. But this is good enough for now. If you haven't played Luigi's Mansion, you definitely should because it's peak. Also, I know I didn't speak super favorably about Dark Moon, but there's still a solid chance I'm going to replay it when it releases on Switch. Like, come on now, it's a Luigi's Mansion game. Even when it's mediocre, it's still not half bad. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching and goodbye. I feel like this is kind of my catchphrase now. I keep ending videos like that. Same outro, but yeah, thanks for watching.